I'm actually not sure whether this is going to be a really like a good one at the first session because it probably requires a bit of context, but we'll take that on as a challenge. And as part of this, I would like to say I would like to give you some challenge as we go as well. So I'm going to show you different set of metrics we have been using as part of this AIFSD when we're working with our client in this space. I might going to actually ask you some questions along the way. So please do feel free to answer those questions along the line. So actually, before we talk about to say how do we measure the impact of AIFSD, so one of the big system the context I do want to share with everyone is really around. There are two questions I actually have been asking myself. It's really around like we're talking about feel like AI is going to change everything. But the other question I'm actually going to ask is what AI is not changing. So the answer I'm getting is actually around like, hey, customers' expectation will not drop because of you are using AI. So what does this mean? That mean like customer experience still matters, performance and reliability still matters, security still matters. Everything we have learned in the past like 3 decades about modern engineering practice still matters. It's not because of AI. You're like, I use AI to build this. So like to say, oh, my result is not accurate. So you can forgive me about that. It's not about this. So I just want to really, really remind us around like to say, even when you're using AI, so something is not changing. So like customer expectations not changing. The outcome the customers are expecting from us are not changing. So it's really, really, but what is changing? So what is changing? Almost everything else, right? How do we work? How do we work? Actually, it's going to change. Like to say, we used to uh, as a developer, so we used to just write every line of code ourselves. We are proud of that. And now that is going to be changed, right? You are going to like to say, one of the one of the example I actually like you used to be a chef and now you're actually going to be a head chef in this space. You're not only just like to say, you probably don't need to have to do all the like a chopping, dicing, cooking by yourself, but you need to work with AI, a coding assistant in this space, actually around give some instructions around the requirement, actually be able to validate the outcome from this. So this one is actually like how do we work is totally changed. The type of work is actually changing. The other one, like I will definitely say is actually people, we still most of type the things we're talking about today is still about like to say how do you like we still write code, we still do like we basically follow the existing SDLC. I think in the future, like is software still going to be the same like today? I doubt. Are we still going to like software itself actually is going to be redefined in this space? I think different capability definitely required into this. So that's why AIFSD has become the core part around Thoughtworks. We need to figure this out and we need to be part of this and we need to lead this. So this is really, really important around this. So actually, all right. Cool. Let's talk about metrics, right? So Peter Drucker has this famous quote, right? If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So of course, AI is not an exception in this space. So still recall what's the first set of metrics coming up when all this coming along. But like I just say, hey, when this coming up, I think the biggest metric people everyone remembers is around this. Like GitHub Copilot has this statement around 55% faster. This is actually is a very powerful metrics, but actually really, really thinking about who this is. this is a very powerful metrics because if you read into the detail to understand what exactly it does means, because it's wrong, like definitely it's made huge impact than what it really means in the specific context. It's basically around, they basically have like two teams working on like creating a web server using JavaScript. So it's basically like the one team is using AI tools, the other team is not using AI tools. So the result is actually based on that. But this is actually has been very faster because it triggered so many client conversations in this one. Like to say, is this a good metrics? It really depends. It depending on like the intention of this metric and the target state of this one. And actually thinking about who is the targeted audience for this metrics, potential users of GitHub Copilot, right? And if this is not power enough, you probably say, hey, they're also having a set around like productivity, like efficiency and flow. It's all hitting all the like key needs of our tech leaders, right? This is what I need. So it's actually a set of metrics that basically creating this perception around like to say, hey, you will get this if you buy the tools. So like I always say, there is always a question behind each set of metrics. The, the question for you, the first question for you, what do you think is the question this set of metrics try to answer? All right, I'm going to reveal. So actually, the question try to answer is why do you need to buy the tool? So GitHub Copilot released this metrics because they actually tried to give in this. It's coming up as a new tool, and they actually want to create this impact. And why do you, I like to say if you're thinking around this key purpose, yes, like yes, this is actually a metrics working really well. But actually, I like to say, they did this so well, and so many of our clients actually go buy the tools. But after some time, a year or so, they realized they didn't get the value. So the metrics is actually coming up around like to say, yes, they used this method successfully setting the tool, but we actually didn't get the value. So they actually now then people start to exploring to use figure out some other metrics in this space to say what how do I know what's going on, right? So you like Shopify, so this actually is a set of metrics Shopify after they have been using GitHub Copilot. They actually have using a set of metrics to talking about adoption rate is basically to say I paid for this much money and how many of my like team members are actually using it. And actually, like around like to say, what's the code like language acceptance rate? You might start to hear from our people, our client actually about these numbers, right? So say one of the common pattern I found out when I talk with our client is actually around like 20%. What I call it 20% disappointment. As around after they pay, then normally only get 20% of the organization are actually using the tool and only 20% of the like suggestions coming from AI actually gets accepted. And then people is actually really try to figure out why why people are not using. Is that because of the tool? Is that because of anything else, right? So start to define a set of questions regarding to the specific pages, like how does people using this. So this one is around like to say, yes, given the question actually you try to answer here, like you are likely actually going to get some like different metrics to support the question you try to answer here. So with this set of questions, like with this set of metrics, what kind of question do we try to answer here? Actually here, right? Thinking about this, I know Mel has answered the nail the first question. Yes, that's great. Question actually try to answer is how do people use the tool, right? So with the set of metrics that actually has been shared, right? Great. And like I say, it's actually not now I actually know like how does people use this tool. The next question is so what? So what? So, like to say, what's other impact? The next question is around what does this like to say productivity, right? So this is actually a really, really good one. We have always say as always is around the no like a single metrics you'll be able to like rule it all. Like to say, it involves that diverse multi-dimensions in this space. We've been talking about developer experience is really, really key. And we're talking about to say not only just about speed, right, faster, but also about the code quality as well. So there are multiple dimensions we need to consider. Then we also start to see from quickly, they actually come up with metrics around, like to say, with AI, we see the increase of duplication code, we see increase of like a code churns, we see less refactoring. So this actually metrics around, like to say, it'll start to bring people to think more about speed. It's not only just about speed, but what's the wider impact around here. And if you look into the latest like state of DevOps report, you just is also thinking about what they split the quality into like a documentation quality, code review, as well like throughput and stability. So that was really, really interesting one. So that actually, this set of metrics really, really triggers people to think more about wider impacts, right? It's not just about speed, there's more about it. So it's actually like, is this actually good enough? Are we stopping here? Not really, because I think this one is thinking around the audience you try to communicate, right? Especially many of us, we actually working with client execs in this space. They're actually thinking about for them, they actually don't care about those like if you talk about quality, they care, but they care to a certain degree. And the more information they care about is actually around overall performance, right? So what does this mean for my entire organization performance? So this is actually what I mean. Like one of the things we actually try to say is around DORA metrics has been proven quite useful regarding to the like the linkage between DORA and the performance of the organization. And in the meantime, we'll just like as we actually add on with AI, we definitely start to see the set of metrics from here. Most of these metrics you should be able to find this from SonarQube. So they are more like the downstream impact of AI. So it's around like to say with this one, you probably say, hey, using AI, we will be able to like in addition to speed, this is actually how does that impact the like risk side? Are we increasing our tech debt? Are we decreasing our tech debt? Together with the performance, then it will be able to actually answer a good story about to say how does AI impact the performance of the organization as well as risk. Yeah. So cool. Is this actually good enough? A complete set of metrics? Not really. So one of the key questions that haven't been answered, addressed is ever like to say our client actually like is if you want to get attention from our execs around they care basically care two things, cost and risks. So that's why I like to say the previous metric does not actually give them the information they will need about cost. And so this is actually the most recent published by DX around the AI management framework. Actually consider around like the utilization, how the people really, really using it. And the impact is very much with a combination around core four metrics. Then similar to others, cost actually adding on is actually interesting. Very much around AI spend, total and per developer, and average hourly rate and net time gain per developer. So that's definitely like to say giving like to say exact the information around like to say with AI what does this mean. So but fundamentally this is something you might still start to see some of the metrics. I actually picked this from one of the examples, real example from our teams. actually using AI to as part of the incident management process. So this is actually another example around like how does AI deliver value to your organization. So, but this is actually very much user case based in that space. But in addition to the difference, so one is very much organization level, this is very much use case level, but both this kind of two metrics are actually trying to answer the same question. It's basically around what's the ROI of AI. So I call this out is actually like the question attempt to answer because I actually don't think this question has been answered. It's around these other proposed metrics, but I don't think they actually really answer this one. So are actually much more nuanced regarding to this. So I'm going to give you some other thinking around this because AI it's not only just for code, right? It does not only change the software. So we actually start to have the client actually thinking around AI is a transformation. They think this is actually going to help them change everything. They actually will take this opportunity using this to redefine the entire organization. So if you thinking from that perspective, and the metrics is going to be very different again. For example, you consider I'm actually going to have like to say a workforce that is totally empowered by AI. Then in that case, you were thinking around like with that, what kind of new rules do I need, right? What kind of existing rules I'm going to evolve in that space, and how many of them I like to say, am I actually will my team shape will be changing, right? So how many of them are changing? How many of them are not changing? So this one is really around like I would say when you define metrics for AI, it's not only about you trying to answer question actually around that. It's also related, how do you define AI? What does AI mean for you? Because if AI means different thing for you, you might use different metrics in this space. But doesn't matter actually around all these key things that you might consider, but I think the key message around your metrics need to support your goals. It's really around this one. So that's why, for example, if I propose this metrics to a client who basically is thinking AI just a tool, it won't resonate. They were just like, why do you talk about this? It's really thinking about metrics need to matching your, like to say, thinking about the audience you're talking to, and it need to matching the goals you try to solve, and need to address the question behind that people actually want to answer, right? So it's really need to be aligned in that space. All right, that comes to the end. I actually want to leave with you. Whenever I talk about metrics, is around you get what you measure. So be aware of the bias it's created. Not every, I really like this one because around, like I say, not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted. So I would like to say metrics is really important, but it's not everything. And I just want to leave you with this one. So I think this, when you're thinking about metrics, it's not just pure numbers, it's about storytelling. And when you feel like to say, why doesn't my client agree with me on this one? So there might be something wrong. Is wrong. Are you actually, is your metrics using the same language that your audience is talking? For example, if you're talking with the CTO or talk with the CFO, you might want to actually like shift your language a bit because they actually care about different things. Actually, before you can propose the metrics, be clear about the question you try to answer. And really around, I think the metrics is really about, it's not, it's more than reporting. It's about like showing the process around how do we solve a problem. It need to be aligned. I want us to use metrics to learn to fix to drive. So there's no one metric going to fit all. So I want us to like test, iterate, and evolve together. So thank you very much. I think that's all from my sharing around the metrics.